All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. You're all here for the Center for Climate Action and Sustainability's Climate Lecture Series. My name is Anthony Lavenda. I'm the director of that center and a member of the faculty here at Evergreen. I'm just going to be doing a quick introduction to the Climate Lecture Series and make a couple announcements before I invite Zoltan Grossman up to do a welcoming of our guests. So the Center for Climate Action and Sustainability here at the Evergreen State College is focused on really building climate programs and educational opportunities for students and the community at large around climate action. As part of my work, I also teach classes around climate action and policy. I'm happy to talk with anybody more about that in a few minutes. I just had a couple of quick housekeeping things before we move into today's event. This is part of a lecture series that we hold every third and seventh week of the quarter. So if you're interested in finding out more about ongoing climate issues, please join us as well in February, which will be a Zoom talk focusing on labor issues related to a just transition with Dr. Mi-Jin Cha from UC Santa Cruz. So please do come for that as well. I was also asked by a member of the faculty, Sarah Williams, to talk about a potential field trial, exhibit, and tasting for bitter eggplant. If you're interested in finding out more about that, please find Sarah in the audience. Sarah, are you here? She's in the back there, and grab a flyer from Sarah. So without further ado, I want to welcome our guest as well as Zoltan Grossman up, who's a member of the faculty in Geography and Native and Indigenous Studies, to help us welcome our guests. So Zoltan, please. Thanks.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm going to first read Evergreen's tribal acknowledgement. We gratefully acknowledge and honor the Squaxin Island tribe, upon whose traditional homelands the Evergreen Olympia campus is situated. For thousands of years, their ancestral families lived and thrived here. They named Bud Inlet Stechas and Eld Inlet, where the campus is located, Squeyaddle. Today, the Squaxin Island tribe continues to live on and steward the lands and waters of the southern Sailor Sea. We also gratefully acknowledge the Puyallup tribe, whose traditional lands Evergreen's Tacoma campus is located upon, and the Squaxin Island tribe bands Nisqually and Puyallup signed the 1854 Medicine Creek Treaty. We respect and acknowledge the Squaxin Island and Puyallup tribes and other tribes across the Americas and their many contributions to the Evergreen State College in support of education, tribal sovereignty, and environmental stewardship. This acknowledgement is one small step, one very small step, one extremely small step toward respect and collaboration with the aim of uplifting the voices, cultures, and histories of the tribes of these lands and waters. I'm Zoltan Grossman, faculty in Geography and Native American and Indigenous Studies since 2005. Anthony has asked me to introduce the speakers for this event, Voices of Indigenous Resistance, Climate Justice, and International Solidarity in North and South America. We will hear about the leadership shown by Native peoples from the lands of the eagle and the condor, who have contributed the least to the climate crisis, its intensified storms, floods, droughts, and wildfires, and are suffering from and resisting it the most. The genesis of this event goes back to February 2023 when Kayla Jenkins, a 2005 Evergreen grad, then working for Nisqually Land Trust and now for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, first contacted me about bringing an Indigenous leader from Ecuador to Evergreen. Kayla had worked closely with Eduardo Mendúa, the head of international relations for the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of Ecuador, as he led his Aicofan community to resist polluting oil companies that are desecrating his lands and contributing to the climate crisis. Just as I was bringing this proposal to Evergreen, Eduardo Mendúa was shot to death by supporters of oil drilling, and his family, community, and nation grieved the loss of his leadership. After his assassination, Eduardo's son Adrián, as well as his niece Jhajayra Machoa Mendúa, took up the cause. Kayla formed the Quan Quan Foundation to support them from afar and bring their voices to global forums such as United Nations climate summits. On Indigenous Peoples Day last year, the Foundation held a fundraising event at New Traditions Cafe for Jhajayra to attend a UN Climate Summit and tell the story of her Aikofan people and their struggle. Also speaking was Jacob Johns, a Spokane community support organizer from the Akimela Adam and Hopi Nations, who had led Indigenous delegations to previous UN climate summits. Jacob had stood with the water protectors at Standing Rock in 2016 and had worked for Native climate justice against Northwest fossil fuel shipping as part of the Backbone campaign. Jacob himself was also shot in September 2023 by a far-right gunman at a protest against a racist conquistador statue in New Mexico. He survived and bravely led another delegation to UN Climate Summit only 2 months later. When I heard both speakers on Indigenous Peoples Day 2024, I knew they also had to speak at Evergreen as part of the climate lecture series. The slot was already planned for this week, 2 days after the presidential inauguration. No matter who won the election, our community needed to hear about what they had to say about the intersection of Indigenous rights and climate justice at home and abroad. As it turned out, in case you haven't heard, Donald Trump won. In his inaugural address on Monday, he reintroduced the concept of manifest destiny, or the divine right of American settlers to colonize the native frontier. Manifest destiny later morphed into militarized overseas imperial expansion into Latin America, such as Puerto Rico and Panama, and into the Pacific, such as Hawaii, Philippines, and eventually Vietnam and the Middle East. We learned about these connections in Evergreen programs such as American Frontiers and People's Geography of American Empire. At the same time was the growth of economic imperialism by US-based corporations, such as copper companies in Chile, coal companies in Colombia, or oil companies like Arco and Texaco in Ecuador. This is what we learned about in our program, Resource Rebels, about solidarity between environmental justice movements in the global North and global South, who are both resisting the same corporations. Trump coveting the return of the Panama Canal Zone or threatening Greenland, just as it is poised to become the first fully independent indigenous state in the Americas, is not a new phenomenon, nor is his threat of repression, much of it aimed at immigrants who are themselves wholly or partly indigenous, or the dramatic loosening of health and environmental protections. As a Native friend from Wisconsin, Brittany Greendeer, said on Facebook a few days ago, "American people, wow, I can't believe the government would do this to us. Natives, ... That's why it's so poignant that we hear from these speakers in this troubling week. Many of us are freaking out about the possibility of harsh authoritarianism in the months and years ahead. But Indigenous peoples have already experienced it all historically, from pandemics and ecocide to boarding schools and corporate land grabs, up to the present day. Eduardo and Jacob were personally on the receiving end of the violence generated by contemporary settler and corporate colonialism. We who are living more insulated and unaware in the heart of the empire have a lot to learn from the peoples who the empire has colonized the longest, and who are in it for the long haul and have the perspective of centuries. Please listen to their stories not to see them merely as victims, but as creative and sophisticated social movement leaders who've demonstrated how to carry out effective resistance and collective resilience. Their lessons can help offer a longer and wider perspective, which can help us all in the coming years. And I'd also like to welcome our friends from Lummi and elsewhere who have joined us here today. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to invite Kayla to come over here, if we can. Kayla. Jacob Johns. My name is Jacob Johns. I'm Aki Maratam and Hopi, and I am a community support organizer based out of Spokane, Washington. I do intersectional organizing both nationally and internationally. I had the honor and the privilege of joining our relatives from Lummi at the Gathering the Eagles a couple of years ago, where I was able to meet this amazing soul who introduced me to the Kofan Nation and her connection with those folks. Would you like to just come up real quick and just real quick interview?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Jacob. So, as Zoltan mentioned, I was a student here at Evergreen and graduated in 2005. It was during my time here as a student that I first traveled to Ecuador during my spring break of 2003 and made connections with some of the indigenous communities there. Over many years now, those connections have continued to grow. And just a few years ago, in 2022, I traveled to Ecuador and met Eduardo Mendúa, who was at the time very involved in a large strike that was taking place in the country that was led by the indigenous organizations. It was incredibly moving and impressive to see the power that they had when they all came together. They actually shut down the country for weeks. And Eduardo told me about his people, the Aikofan, and how they had been fighting to keep an oil company out of their territory, out of their community. And I became involved trying to help Eduardo find resources, connect with different organizations to spread the word about their fight, about them trying to protect the small piece of land that they still had and to defend their culture. And it was shortly after Eduardo was murdered in February of 2023 that I was sharing his story at an event downtown Olympia where Freddie Lane was present, and he was actually bringing through a totem pole that we did some prayers around in solidarity with another group of folks who were trying to protect some sacred land down in the Southwest. So he invited me to participate in the Gathering of the Eagles. The initial hope was to bring Eduardo's son, Adrian, up to participate in person, and we tried to, but he couldn't get his visa in time. And it was there at the Gathering of the Eagles in May of 2023 that I first met Jacob. And, well, this more recent year, we got to know each other a little better, and I was able to connect him with Jhajayra. Jhajayra is the niece of Eduardo, and she stepped into a leadership role right following his murder. Not exactly by choice, but by circumstance. And she decided to continue his fight to protect their land. And I really wanted to connect her with the Wisdom Keepers delegation that Jacob organizes. That takes indigenous wisdom and knowledge and I want to say solutions to these international forums. So.
Cool. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, sorry, I can't stand here too long. It's a whole thing. So before we switch over and get the presentation started, I wanted to just invite our relatives from Lummi to come stand next to us, and invite you both to come here. I have a background organizing for political action committees here in Washington State, and a couple of years ago we were working on a police accountability bill to change the law to hold police accountable for murder here in Washington State. We failed. And we had to come back and revamp it and do all this other stuff. And during this campaign of the rebirthing of this change that would hold police accountable for murder here in Washington State, I ran into Freddie Lane, who was helping the campaign. It was funded by political action committees that were funded by tribes here in the Pacific Northwest. And we went on a res-to-res tour to all 29 tribes to pitch, saying, hey, listen, the police are out here killing us. Please give us some money so we can change this law to hold these people accountable for murder, right? But Freddie was able to organize the whole thing. I was able to meet him. Years went by, and I had this dream where I was on this boat, and I was on this river, and I was going by really, really slow, like how boats go, really, really slow. And right next to me was this big billboard, and it said, Freddie Lane, and I was like, Freddie Lane, what's this all about? And then later on in the dream, I'm driving over the bridge, and then I look down again. There's another big billboard that said Freddie Lane, really, really big. And I was like, what does this mean? Is this a sign, I wondered? Sure enough, it was. So the next day, I called up Freddie, and I said, hey, I don't know what you're into right now, but whatever you're doing, I want to come and I want to help you, and I want to support you. And in doing this, listening to those dreams, I was able to make the connections here and to create the connection between the North and South America for people who are fighting the same fight globally. And I wanted to invite our relatives here to come up and to open a space up to really talk a little bit about the Gathering of the Eagles, and more importantly, how you all locally here can get connected and help support this movement and join the paddle as we look towards May. So I'm going to jump back over here. I'm going to push play, and I'm going to pass the mic over to Freddie, as there is going to be video here demonstrating what it is he's speaking to.
ACM. Thank you, Jacob, and thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Mr. Grossman, and thank you, Anthony, for our opportunity to come be with each and every one of you. Siama Nishchalacha, Sohila Kwanisanat Tacho, Tiakaya, Siama Nishchalacha. My Indian name, Salkadab. I am from the Lummi Nation. I'm a former council member. I'm a grassroots organizer. If you've ever been to the paddle to Squaxin Island, the canoe journeys each year. I was the director of 26 committees back in 2007 and 2019 when Lummi Nation hosted the canoes, like you see in the back. This is a gathering of eagles. You're all invited. This is your invitation, May 17th through the 26th, 2025. You're all invited to the Gathering of Eagles, 12/12/25. That's in Maui, Hawaii. It's a canoe encampment. We camp on the beach in Maui. We camp at each of the villages and sites here. The canoes travel island to island. We spend 2 nights on each night. Lopez, May 17th and 18th. San Juan, the 19th and 20th. Orcas, the 20th and 21st. And we land at Lummi back on the mainland on Friday the 23rd, which is Memorial Day weekend. And if you've never been to Ski to Sea in Bellingham, Washington, what a great opportunity for Zoltan and all of you to paddle in or to come in and be a part of our event. It's going to be our Coast Salish Pride Day. I myself am two-spirited. I help organize and bring our relatives from South Africa, from Hawaii. Our Maori relatives come and visit us. And Jacob brought our relatives from South Africa. We launched the canoes. I know Jacob said boat, and I'll forgive him because if we were on the shore, we would throw them in the water for calling a canoe a boat, because boats have motors and canoes have pullers. And so it's my relative, Hutcha Qualton. He's allowing me to carry the Eagle staff. This is, again, the Gathering of Eagles. I just want to say that Richard shared with me in that the planning of the original Gathering of Eagles 40 years ago, Zoltan, started right here at Evergreen State College, and I did not know that. This last year we celebrated, it was the 40th anniversary, because Hutcha Qualton's his partner, the mother started the first Gathering of Eagles. So this is us in downtown Friday Harbor. If you've never been out to the islands, come on out. We camp on the beach. Each village that we come to, it's like coming to a potlatch in the olden days. And we bring the canoes in, and everybody's welcome. We celebrate our intergenerational cultural heritage. And again, the invitation is there to Anthony, and all of you relatives are welcome to come out. If you can't make it for the whole journey, come out for parts of it. Come out for the day and bring a van out and catch the ferry out and come visit us. This is Friday Harbor, Jackson Beach. The canoes come in. And so we're with the Alliance of Earth, Sky, Water, and Fire Protectors. That's how the gathering started. We're done talking about climate change. And we're just, right now, I just want to let you all know for the next generation that I'm sorry. I apologize for what your generation's going to have to face. And our relatives in Hawaii, as you know, Lahaina, our friends down in Pacific Palisades, and I don't care what anybody says about Hollywood and La La Land, but you know, the earth is saying something. And in San Diego right now, just yesterday, it was on fire. So I let people know I don't want to scare you, but hey, a lot of people are already scared by what's happening politically, but we survived. We're resilient. You're all resilient. And this is why we gather for our gathering of the Eagles. Yeah, it rains, okay? We live in the Northwest, so just plan for rain. But that happens in our life. We have to be ready for everything in our lifetime. As young people, I'm maybe 56 years old, but I still feel as young as Zoltan. And you know, that's what, you guys are what keeps him going. You guys are what help Anthony and Kayla and everything that's happening with our friends that you're going to meet here shortly from Ecuador. If you've seen the Amazon River, how it's drying up at the headwaters, you just look at it. And there's something happening. We're real fortunate to have water here. We're really fortunate to have the snow in the mountains. And so this, and our Hawaiian relatives, our South African relatives, our Hopi relatives, I just want to first and foremost bring up Anthony. We just have to do this in a good way. And we just want to blanket you and cover you in a good way with a good heart. This is what we do at the Gathering of Eagles. This is how we start off our gathering. Sharing and caring, that's what the gathering is about. We do drumming and singing and sharing. We do stargazing. We educate the since time immemorial curriculum. And so a lot of the youth from the tribe, and Kayla, could you, and then we have one more blanket, the blanket that was covering the Eagle staff. We just in a good way, this is just a little bit of spiritual work. And our relatives in Ecuador, if they were viewing, go ahead, you can put it on, Jacob. If our relatives were here, and so we're going to spiritually cover our relatives. And this is what we do. This is a part of how we conduct ourselves. Knowing that we come from a house of teaching. This is a house of knowledge and teachings. Remember, this is your home. This is your home. And I respect your home. And I respect the Medicine Creek Treaty signed December 27th, 1854. Our treaty days today. Treaty Day, the Point Elliott, January 22nd, 1855. If you want to hear the treaty reading that I did with a group, it's on my YouTube channel at Freddie Lane. It's really important. It's really important. I just have to share this and share this moment with our relatives here. And we just want to do like we do at the Gathering of Eagles with all of our friends and relatives, and to have a little blessing with you. We'd just like to sing a short verse just to bless our family here. And if you'd all please stand, I just want to honor our relative here, Siam and Jhajayra, and honoring our relative that's visiting us soon from Ecuador. Thanking each and every one of you. You can have a seat. Appreciate this moment of time to invite you to the Gathering of Eagles and sharing with you, Zoltan, and all your friends and relatives. Thank you very much, Anthony. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it, ACM.
We just got one more piece of business that we have to do. I'd like to invite my daughter and my niece to come on up here. We have a gift for Freddie for the Gathering of the Eagles. Thank you so much.
To help with our journey, ACM, thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you all so much. Okay, great. I'm sorry about that, but we have to do protocols. It's one of the things that I've learned as I start working with these coastal communities is that protocol is very, very important. And the way that we do protocol back home is different, but the protocols that we do internationally are huge. We originally were going to do a canoe journey 2 years ago through the Persian Gulf to land on the shores of Dubai to do protocols as we entered into the climate negotiations for COP29. But what happened, I'm sorry, for COP28, 29? 28. I'm sorry, one of the COPs, forgive me, there's a lot of police in the room. The idea was for us to do a protocol, really to come together and do protocol, land on the shores, ask for permission to do all these things, but there were fires in Lahaina, and that really put a damper on our Hawaiian canoe family. So it really just gives a little bit more weight to it. So I just want to say thank you so much to our relatives for making the drive from Lummi to come in and stand with us today. So thank you so much. Beautiful. So, my name is Jacob Johns, and I use all human pronouns. I'm based in Spokane, Washington. I'm a community-supported organizer. Basically, a community-supported organizer is like a solo nonprofit group that does like intersectional organizing, both nationally and well. First off, I started off focusing on local and regional stuff, which eventually evolved into national and international work, which is really, really important. I started off doing community-supported organizing, doing supply runs for Standing Rock back in 2016. I was working for a political action committee here in Washington State, and we were doing very successful. We were the only Democratic-aligned campaign that was succeeding that year. And when Trump became president the first time, I mean, people were in the hallways and they were crying, right? Like it was devastation. People are like tearing, and they're sitting in little sad corners and little sad puddles, right? It was really sad. But we won. And so I was celebrating all these different things. I thought it was just a big joke. There's no way this dude can be the president. Like, what's the deal right now? And then I woke up. Sure enough, it had been, solidified, this person being the president. And so the next day, we had won our campaign. I went down to the Backbone campaign because they have a program called Community Supported Organizer. And at the time, I was already working a full-time job, but I was doing supply runs to take supplies back to the front lines at Standing Rock. We brought people out there. I think we had set up our own camp. We had like 34 people. We did 6 supply runs. I mean, it was a big deal. And then I switched over to doing community-supported organizing because I don't believe in a nonprofit prison industrial complex, right? Which gives me the freedom to be able to move around. So I started off doing supply runs to Standing Rock, which eventually brought me up to doing international climate policy at the United Nations. And it's a big step, right? Like I'm not gonna go into how it all happened or how it all went through, but in so doing this, I was able to meet our wonderful friends here who are going to come and talk a little bit about what it means for us to work internationally. You know, I think that for us as Americans, it's really, really like this society that is so self-consumed. We think about ourselves, we think about how it's going to impact our economy and what we think and how we feel. But when we go into international spaces, we start to realize the impact that the American government has on the rest of the world. The American government acts as obstructionists in international spaces, always naysaying progressive climate policy that would have had massive impacts on the world. And the US goes in there and says, nah, I'm good. And then China will go in and say, no, I'm good. Russia says, I'm good too. And then all of this work that all these small countries have been working on for years just goes out the window. And, you know, as the science has been showing us for years, we've been trying to stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius and global temperature rise, that we have failed. We reached 1.5 degrees Celsius in total global temperature rise last year. And that's frightening. And we know that taking small increment steps domestically is not going to save us. That we must take a giant quantum leap into the future together. And that the governments don't always act on our behalf. When Trump pulled us out of the Paris Accords the first time, as an American walking through those halls, what an embarrassment that is, right? But now, as Trump has pulled us out of the Paris Accord once again, as some sort of egotistical move, it's a blessing to the rest of the world. Because the US are bullies. And they are obstructionists. And without the US in the room, we will hopefully see some progressive climate policy come out of these international spaces. So focusing on how we take this giant quantum leap into the future together, how do we step outside of these confines of colonialism and capitalism, how do we unify with the ancient wisdom that was given to us at the time of original instructions, the times we emerged onto this planet, how we came to this level, how do we find those people who still continue to hold on to those original truths and teachings and unify, and really focus on what can we do now. How do we combine our distilled indigenous wisdom into contemporary climate policy that we can advance through heads of states that are leading the world? And how do we do this? How do we do this with passion, with truth, and with prophecy? Which led us to finding all these amazing people. And so one of those amazing people, I would like to pass over the microphone here, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about her. Yeah. Great.
So we're going to, yes, thank you. We're going to switch over, I think, to the Zoom call now. And we are very fortunate to have with us virtually today Jhajayra Machoa, the niece of Eduardo Mendúa. And Jhajayra is currently serving as the Director of Youth and Sports and Culture for the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, CONFENIAE. Bienvenida, Jhajayra.
Hanyo ba sime abuhase chi ambiam puik Vatican de kuma inge mapanya ne hinde kuma. Abuhangi puiko hanyo bahichune y nyangi afa etunhe mingengiña y tumbakenga kunda imahangiña. Muy buenas tardes con todos. Agradecer a cada uno de ustedes por estar aquí y también para mí es un honor y un privilegio poder participar en este evento.
Good afternoon. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And for me, it is a great honor to be participating in this event.
Desde Ecuador, representar a las nacionalidades de la región amazónica ecuatoriana.
From Ecuador, I represent the nations, the indigenous nations of the Amazon region.
Actualmente represento a la Confederación de Nacionalidades Indígenas de la Amazonía Ecuatoriana, CONFENIAE, que representa a 11 nacionalidades y más de 1,500 comunidades.
I represent CONFENIAE, the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities of the Ecuadorian Amazon, that currently represents 11 nations of the Ecuadorian Amazon.
Alzar la voz de las mujeres, de la juventud y de toda la Amazonía ecuatoriana es muy importante que ustedes nos escuchen. Lo importante que es para nosotros los territorios y ser de las nacionalidades indígenas.
It's important that I raise the voice of the indigenous women and youth of the Amazon region, and that you hear us.
Mi rol inicia desde la comunidad Aicofán, en la nacionalidad a la que pertenezco, y a la organización en que está basada en defender los territorios.
My leadership role begins or has its root in my Aicofán community.
Defender ante el activismo y el cambio climático que enfrentamos día a día ahora en la actualidad.
It's important for me to be involved in activism to address the climate change which we are experiencing in our day-to-day lives.
Mi vinculación inicia a través de Kayla, quien le habló a Jacob, quienes son de la delegación de guardianes de la sabiduría, de mi trabajo y mi rol ante la organización aquí en Ecuador.
My connection here today is through Kayla, who spoke with Jacob about me and the work I do in my role with CONFENIAE and connected me with the Wisdom Keepers delegation.
Al inicio, con esta delegación, mi participación fue virtual con los compañeros.
At the beginning of my participation with the delegation, it was just virtual.
En la COP29 que se llevó en Bakú, Azerbaiyán, pude conocerlos presencialmente, personalmente, a la delegación Guardianes de la Sabiduría.
At COP29, which took place in Baku, Azerbaijan, I was able to go there in person and personally meet the members of the delegation and get to know them.
Esta experiencia me ha permitido alzar mi voz
This experience allowed me to raise my voice
como joven y mujer en espacios fuera de nuestra tierra al nivel internacional.
as a woman, as a young person, in spaces in an international forum,
promoviendo nuestras oportunidades de conservación y resiliencia en defensa ante las violencias que enfrentamos
being able to raise our voice and our concerns about conservation and about the issues that we are facing.
al ver estas necesidades dentro de nuestros territorios que enfrentamos, buscamos conjuntamente con la delegación Guardianes de la Sabiduría dar soluciones.
We are looking together as the Wisdom Keepers delegation for solutions to these problems that we face.
También decirles que soy sobrina de un líder que fue asesinado en el año 2023,
I also want to say
Eduardo Mendúa.
I am the niece of a COFAN leader who was murdered in 2023, Eduardo Mendúa.
Gracias.
Thank you.
So Jhajayra was able to join us from the Amazon. It took, I think, 3 days to travel. It actually turned into a whole thing where the folks in third world countries can't transit through a first world countries. You have to get like a travel visa, and then you have to jump through all these hoops. It's a whole thing. So in order for her to get from the Amazon, we went over a budget. It cost like an extra $5,000 to bring her out from the Amazon so that she could speak on behalf of her people. And the reason that we put so much energy and so much money and so much faith into this is because of what happened. The stories that were shared, the stories what took place, it's important. And, for Indigenous people who are always at the forefront of environmental degradation, it's important for us to unify and really speak truth to power. And when we find this truth inside of other people, it emboldens the passion that we have in our hearts. And this itself is the energy that we need to combat fascism. This is the energy that we need to overcome separation from nature. This is what we have to do. In our traditions, we speak of a time of reunification, where human beings would come back together to understand that we are all together as one family. In fact, in utero, here on our planet, on Mother Earth, living inside of her. And this space of reunification is important as we try to find those people who still listen and follow the original instructions given to them at the dawn of creation, that these traditional instructions and these original instructions must come together. And we must try to remember that which we have forgotten. And we must try to find ways that we can really amplify those voices and speak truth to other people's hearts who might be hearing only noise when we speak. And it's important for us to find ways to do this, not just in academic ways, but in passion and in spiritual practice. And the idea, I think, is different because as environmental activists, as an Indigenous person, we come into this space understanding that we are nature and that we are defending ourselves as we defend the environment. And that we must come together and really, really redefine what it is for us to find community and solidarity and international collective power. And it's important. I think that in the South, in the global South, there's a big prophecy of the eagle and the condor, which doesn't really come up here that often. But in the South, the prophecy of the eagle and the condor is when the condor, representing the South American people, and the eagle, representing the North American people, will fly together. And when the eagle and the condor fly together, the world will find balance and find harmony once again. And so this prophecy is sort of being lived out as we go through it. And everybody always talks about, oh, you know, what we need to do is we need to unite the world. Everybody hold hands, right? Like, it's really beautiful conceptually, but nobody's actually doing it in real time. And if they are, they're puppeteered by corporations who have their own interests at hand to speak the corporate bylaws into these spaces, right? Which is difficult. As an Indigenous person coming into these spaces, especially as a solo nonprofit at a CSO, I was able to come into the international spaces by joining the U.S. Climate Action Network. I helped them develop a couple of programs over the years, and they have access to the United Nations, which has, you have to get UN security passes or security badges to get through security. And I went. The first year I went to the COP, was the Conference of the Parties. I actually had never even really heard of it too much, right? Like, real quick, does anybody in the room know what the Conference of the Parties is? Raise your hand. Can I see a raise of hand? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, it's 4. Oh, 5. Oh, so we've got 5 of them. All right. 5 people out of the room. I was one of the people that didn't raise their hands. I didn't know what was going on here, right? What was this international climate policy work, all this stuff. So I started doing research, started figuring out what's actually happening, and I was able to get access. I submitted a side event that was picked up called Grassroots Community Solutions. It turned into this whole thing. But I'm a solo nonprofit group, right? I don't get funding from grants or scholarships. I had to have small donors who contribute monthly to my cost of living so that I can do this work full time. And as one person coming into these spaces, it's important. I can really work with the networks, I can do all this stuff, but as one person with only crowdfunding to support the cost of, the cost that it would take to transport and everything, it's just one voice. And I don't know if anybody has ever tried to yell at a crowd, but it doesn't work very often. You know, what we need to do is really understand that we are being guided by Spirit. We are being guided by Spirit because we want to live, we want to survive, we want to see a healthy, just, livable world. And in order to do that, we have to take actionable steps. So after coming back from Madrid, I did some other stuff. I went back to Glasgow, which I did some other things. But this all came from Standing Rock, right? And I was like, it was this gray area where I didn't know existed. It's like this gray area that is a 501c3, but I don't have a board. It's a whole thing. And so what I ended up doing is just grabbing a bunch of footage and just showing people, like, this is what I'm doing. This is what I've done. And so I wanted to show, sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to put this over here. Forgive me for these clips. You go? All right, cool.
Aerial view here. So I want to show you guys what they have. I want to show you if I can. I don't know if they really not. Show you. Tower last night.
You can't see it, but they are there. I'm not the best camera person.
Corps of Engineers have denied our permit. It's a beautiful day. Man, this is the greatest history in the making, and you guys made it possible. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for being here all those hard times, and I'd like to thank all the people that stood and sacrificed themselves in the front lines, and we are very thankful. As the elders always said, that we're spiritual leaders, we're peaceful people, and we believe in prayer.
And then Trump took over. Ew. So gross. There it is. Where am I at? Sorry. Cool. So that was just a real quick thing. That was like the first video that I ever did as a CSO. It's pretty crappy. It's not the best. But also, like, I'm not a camera person, right? Like, I was trying to zoom in with a GoPro. What's that all about? But I just wanted to show that video just to give you an idea of being able to do this. I didn't have to go to a board and ask them, hey, listen, I need to X amount of money to take X amount of people to come over here to stand on the front line. Like, I need this amount of money and this amount of people to lock down. You know, I didn't have to do all that. I just did it. And that's one of the freedoms of working within this gray area, which gives me a little bit of a freedom. And I think that one of the best things about that is, being able to find spaces that actually need to be filled. And one of the problems with trying to do that as an American is that Americans are so self-absorbed. All we care about is ourselves. What's happening in America? Well, the truth is that there's a whole world out there, and the United States just acts as one to facilitate damage in other places. And so what I wanted to do as just one person is try to find ways, how do I educate the public? How do I get people to understand the impacts of what's happening internationally? All this stuff that we have to come through it, and like, people need to know about this. I hear there's 5 people in the room know what the cop's going on. So I wanted to show I created a video series to explain a little bit about the intricacies of what happens at the UNFCCC and why it's important.
In the year 1992, the United Nations held an Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro. The summit allowed the United Nations to adopt a framework aimed at preventing, quote, dangerous climate change. This legally binding agreement, known as the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or the UNFCCC, was signed by 197 countries worldwide. Each year, countries submit their nationally determined contributions to the United Nations framework as their countries plan to achieve the required goals. Negotiators come together to discuss the terms of the agreement at what is called the Conference of the Parties. The COP, as it is also known, is attended by countries that sign the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In 2015, attendees signed on to the Paris Agreement, setting the global temperature rise limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The Paris Agreement, as it was called, meant that countries had to keep cutting emissions until they hit net zero by 2050. We are now currently at 1.2 degrees in total global temperature rise, with new models predicting that we're actually on track to hit 1.5 degrees Celsius by the year 2030. And why is 1.5 a very important number? Why should we care at all? Global glacier melt accompanied by extreme droughts. Global crop failure. Sea level will rise accompanied by island nations being completely wiped off the map. The entire ocean becoming acidic and no longer able to support life. The entire equatorial region becomes uninhabitable. Society as we know it will fail. Systems that support life will fail. But we have the ability to stop some of it. We can mitigate that very possible future now. We are a part of the earth. There is no separation. And we must listen to ourselves and continue to replenish our spirits with hope and strength. And we have seen world leaders fail us over and over again, and yet we still continue to put faith in these systems that continue to destroy. Our our societies must realize that the public interest is a global concern, and humanity will move forward together, leaning on ourselves for guidance.
Sisters and brothers all together, let us stand.
The United Kingdom spent £250 million
Of the UNFCCC, and it's not all of them. I've been working on international climate policy for the past 3 years. I have barely scratched the surface of the bureaucracy and the layers of paperwork and subcommittees and committees that we all have to navigate in order to understand what's actually taking place. And that's frightening. And that's frightening. That's really scary. And as I try to amplify, like, look, listen, everybody, pay attention to this. This is actually taking place, right? You can only do so much as one person, and I've tried all kinds of creative ways to move forward and to try to amplify messages and to do all this stuff, but as one person, we understand that we only have a one voice in a sea of other voices, and that we must find others to unify, that are in alignment, to speak the truth to power, that are in vibration with what we are trying to create. And this video that I showed you about the UNFCCC is frightening because those models back in 2021 predicted that we would hit 1.5 degrees at 2030. That was a false model. We hit 1.5 degrees last summer. We are starting to see those fallouts now. These extreme weather predictions, these extreme weather patterns are going to become the normal. They already are. We're moving into a desertification. The entire equatorial region will become uninhabitable. The fires in California, everybody knows about the California fires, right? Everybody's pretty up to date about the fires going on in LA. Well, the entire world is on fire, including the equatorial region, specifically Africa and the Amazon. And it's been burning for a while. And it only affects us now because it hurt California. And this is an example of how we operate as a society here. And it's frustrating, and it's scary, because those same fires, those same people in California who are suffering at the hands of extreme weather events are in relationship with those in the global south who are suffering from the same. And the more that we can start to see these common denominators on how one voice of community has to be the voice for all, has to come together. How do we put this together to make it happen? And as the solo nonprofit group, after coming back from Glasgow, I was jet lagged, right? Like I do a lot of international travel, and the jet lag really screws with me. My circadian rhythm's it's all screwed up, right? Like it took me like a full week to just get a normal sleeping pattern. It's awful. But when I came back from Glasgow, I had this worst. I mean, it was really bad. It was like the worst jet lag. I couldn't sleep, and so I was waking up at 3 a.m. Right, 3 in the morning, and I have a pattern of just meditating. I just wake up and I meditate. It's just a pattern. I spend about an hour a day meditating in the morning. So I wake up at 3 a.m. I'm sitting on the floor. I'm getting a cup of coffee. I'm in my living room. I'm in my boxers. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna meditate on all this stuff. And it's just a pattern that I have. Well, after coming back from Glasgow, after shooting this footage, I was interviewing people in the hallways, and I saw this man. He was this beautiful man, this beautiful flower of a human being, and he was standing there, and I interviewed him, and he was saying all these profound things, these beautiful, amazing things, and I was just like sucking it in. I wasn't paying attention to the words. I was just feeling. It's like, give me this. The hairs on my arms are standing up. There's truth, beautiful truth coming out of this person. So I came home, and I was going to edit the footage to put that video as the cherry on top. And I forgot to turn on the sound. So whatever he said, it's lost the ether, and I'm like, all right, whatever. So after I was meditating for a while, I had this flash. I was doing a spiritual practice where we envision ourselves as the earth, broadcasting energy from our hearts that's connected to the earth. I had this vision and this flash that I needed to travel the world to find other people who are in alignment in the same vibration to pray at sacred sites around the planet. And it came to me like, poof, like, oh, all right, that sounds cool, whatever. I just shook it off, went and got another cup of coffee. And then 4 hours later, I get an email from that man who forgot to turn on the sound and asked me, would you like to join this group of people who travel the world to pray for humanity at sacred sites? And I was like, yeah, I guess. So we went on a tour. There was this whole theory about intersectional points. It's called ley line theory, where there are intersectional points around the intersectional energy grids around the planet. And at these key intersectional places are all these famous monuments, Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, right? This whole idea. So we went to all these sacred places to pray. I got this email. I thought these people are aliens, right? Like who's sending me these messages during meditation, right? I'm not going to join it. So I drove down to Mount Shasta to meet with them because that was one of the places. And we hiked up to the top and we sang and we did prayer and we did ceremony. And after that, I was convinced. And I went with them and I went to the Azores in Portugal, a Portuguese island. And then I went to the Great Pyramid of Giza. From Giza, we went to Greenland to do prayers for the North Pole. From North Pole, we went to China to do prayers at Xi'an. From Xi'an, we went to Mount Kailash in Tibet to pray at the base of Mount Kailash. From Mount Kailash, we went to Uluru, which is also known as Ayers Rock in Australia. From Australia, we went to New Zealand, to the North Island and to the South Island so that we could do ceremony for the South Pole. Oh, sorry. Sorry, 1 second. I didn't realize it was on that. It wasn't on there.
Then the water becomes stronger than the ice and breaks it, and it goes out in a big way. This river right now is running more than 1 million liters per second, and there are more than 10,000 of them from the melting ice. You know, the water you brought from home, from Monkey, we put her into the water from the melting of the big ice. So when we put this one in, it will become part of this incredible ocean of the Arctic. And then you will take home water from the melting ice, million-year-old ice.
All these. What up? Shouts out to the North Pole. Yeah. That's right. I think it's important to always find joy in places. I think it's really important to find laughter when we look at serious things, and try to find joy in dangerous things. But as I was traveling around the world, I met a group of amazing people on all these different sacred sites, and some of them came with me on the journeys to pray. Some of them came. It was funded by a film crew that follows around. There's a movie, there'll be a film series coming out this year called Transformations that followed us around. But after meeting all these amazing people and praying together and going on all these sacred places around, we have to do more, right? Yes, let's pray. Yes, let's come together in ceremony. Yes, let's come together for the goodwill and the betterment of humanity. But what else? What's next? What do we do then? And for those of us who are living in America after witnessing gun violence, we understand that people just want to send thoughts and prayers, right? Let's send thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't do anything for us in the face of adversity. It doesn't do anything for us in the face of fascism. It doesn't do anything for us. What we have to do is do action. We must take action. I am a pretty hardcore activist, and I'm here to tell you that direct action gets the goods. And how do we take direct action with a bunch of people who just want to see the world flourish? And I invited them. I said, hey, listen, I do international climate work. And what I wanted to do is to bring together a small group of people that we've traveled together that I know for sure is real and has substance, and come together and find ways that we can put our distilled continuous indigenous wisdom into contemporary climate policy that we can advance to heads of state underneath the United Nations. Will you do this work with me? And some of them said yes. And what an amazing group of people, and including Jhajayra from the Ecuador, who specifically is focusing on protecting the Amazon, is just what an amazing addition to this team. And it all happened from us coming together and finding community and coming to see each other. I'd like to just maybe pass over to Jhajayra a little bit to talk a little bit about what that experience is for her.
If we could get the Zoom up again. Jhajayra, Jacob, le gustaría escuchar cómo fue la experiencia para ti de participar en el COP, en ese foro internacional.
Bueno, voy a dar un poquito de la anécdota que viví para participar en la COP.
I'm going to give a little background on the experiences that I lived in order to participate in the COP.
Tuve dos oportunidades de tener una experiencia en la COP. La primera fue la COP de biodiversidad, la COP 16, que se dio en Cali.
I had two opportunities to participate in the COP. The first was COP 16 on biodiversity, which took place in Cali, Colombia.
En ese espacio para mí fue un poco más accesible, porque en Colombia, en Cali, hablan más el español, y para mí fue un poquito más fluido poder comunicarme con ellos.
In this COP in Cali, it was more accessible for me because there a lot more people spoke Spanish, and it was sort of more fluid for me to participate.
En la COP de Azerbaiyán, en la COP 29, para mí fue una experiencia buena también, y también muchos retos que tuve que vivir.
And the COP 29 in Azerbaijan was also a great experience for me, but it also was a lot of challenge for me.
Me tuve que enfrentar al idioma turco y al idioma inglés.
I had to deal with English language and the local language there.
Bueno, al raíz que iba a participar en la COP conjuntamente con la delegación Guardianes de la Sabiduría, llevamos una coordinación buena hasta ese momento vía virtual.
At the root of it was this participation with the Wisdom Keepers delegation, which was going very well and started in a virtual way for me.
Todo estaba perfecto para participar en la COP hasta que llegó a unos 3 días el viaje y no me accedieron la visa europea.
Everything was going well for me to participate in the COP until 3 days before it started, and I was not able to obtain a European visa.
En lo cual la delegación de Guardianes de la Sabiduría hizo de todo lo posible para que yo participara. Me imagino que hasta se pararon de cabeza, pero me tuvieron que tener presencial en la COP 29.
And the Wisdom Keepers delegation at that point did everything possible to make sure that I would be able to participate. I was practically losing my mind, but they assured me that they wanted me to participate.
Pero a raíz de que hubo tantas precauciones, como que parecía que no iba a viajar, pero se dio la posibilidad y tuve esa experiencia de poder compartir.
There were so many challenges and so many preparations that had to take place for me to participate, but I was able to do it, and I had that experience.
Estando allá en Azerbaiyán, vi a la delegación, conocí a Jacob y también agradecerle por ese compromiso que tiene con las nacionalidades de que esas voces escuchen, de representar nuestra identidad.
And being there at the COP, I was able to finally meet Jacob and others who are members of the delegation, and I want to express my gratitude to them for their commitment to raising the voices of Indigenous peoples at these forums.
Y me decía alguien de la delegación, Summer, tienes que venir, tienes que hacer todo lo posible, pero tienes que estar aquí. Tienes que tener fe, esperanza, sabiduría. Yo encomendé a toda mi espiritualidad, a nuestros ancestros, a nuestros dioses, que se me dé esta oportunidad de llegar a conocer a la delegación.
And she thanks Summer, who was her translator there for the event, who gave her a lot of encouragement and told her how important it was for her to be there and have her voice heard, and who also prayed to her, or prayed for her, to her ancestors.
Llegué al aeropuerto de Bakú y era otro idioma. No sabía cómo hacerme entender. Hablaba con señas, no sé del idioma mudo, pero tuve que ingeniarme para poder entender y poder llegar.
I arrived at the airport in Baku, and it was a different language. I didn't know how to communicate. I had to use sort of signs and mimes to say what I needed.
Pero es increíble esta experiencia ya estando en la COP, los espacios en donde estás para poder intervenir, que te escuchen. Es como muy limitado los tiempos, pero tienes que adaptarte para poder dar lo mejor de ti.
The experience of being at the COP was really incredible. There are all these spaces where you get a chance to speak, but the time is short, but it's still an amazing experience and opportunity.
Y ahí pudimos hacer muchas resiliencias, también pudimos de alzar nuestras voces, de que nos escuchen, de concientizar al raíz de la espiritual, del cosmos, de que cómo nosotros estamos defendiendo nuestros territorios y enfrentando este cambio climático.
We were able to raise our voices in these spaces to raise awareness of our spiritual beliefs and also about the challenges that we are facing as peoples.
Y en estos espacios muchos te entenderán el por qué quieres defender el territorio y por qué quieres salvar los recursos naturales.
In these spaces, people wanted to know, why is it important that why do you want to protect these places? Why do you want to defend these natural places?
Y para muchos será una locura, pero no, el mundo externo no nos entiende de que nosotros queremos no salvarnos nosotros mismos, sino salvar al mundo, porque después, a pasar de los años, quedaremos sin espacios de vida.
For some people, it seemed crazy, but really the truth is we're not doing this just to save ourselves. We're doing this to save everyone, because if we don't do it, there won't be anywhere for life to exist.
Por eso es importante participar en estos espacios internacionales, visibilizándonos, demostrando que somos visibles, de que los indígenas persistimos y existimos dentro de los territorios indígenas.
For this reason, it's really important for us to participate in these international forums so that we are visible, so people see that we exist, we continue to exist.
Necesitamos que el mundo sepa de que el pueblo indígena no estamos retrasando a ningún gobierno. Estamos queriendo sostener y sustituirnos, de sostenernos, de dar esa sostenibilidad. Y para ello son estos espacios que a veces las negociaciones no son favorables y los más afectados somos los pueblos indígenas.
The Indigenous peoples, we want to sustain ourselves. We want all of us to be sustainable. And oftentimes there are these negotiations going on where Indigenous peoples are not present or heard.
También ver mucha gente en esos espacios es pensar de que no vas a llegar a ningún lado, pero esa misma gente te está impulsando, te está apoyando y creo que para eso estamos como nosotros desde Ecuador, como la Confederación y también conjuntamente ahora parte de Guardianes de la Sabiduría, buscando estos espacios.
When you're in these places, you see people from all over the world, and it can feel like you're just a small part. But here we are from Ecuador, and we're part of this international delegation and making our voices heard.
Las oportunidades y los retos son maravillosos. Por ello, invito a los jóvenes a amar nuestra tierra, alzar y valer nuestros derechos y defender nuestros territorios con valentía, determinación, porque juntos podemos marcar la diferencia dentro de los territorios indígenas.
The challenges can seem overwhelming sometimes, but this is why I always encourage the youth to love their culture, to value their traditions, because together, as we come together with these values, we can make a difference.
Esto es lo que puedo compartir en este momento. Más adelante iremos hablando en estos espacios cómo ha sido las trayectorias y cómo vamos trabajando conjuntamente.
This is what I want to share in this moment, and I'll speak a little bit more later about how we work in the territories.
It's such a blessing to be able to find these connections. The atrocities that her community has been facing is serious. I mean, her uncle was killed. There are death threats against her. She has to, be in hiding. There's a lot of things. She's literally putting her life on the line to come out here and advocate for a healthy, just, livable future. And so we wanted to do anything that we could possibly do to get her to come in. I don't speak Spanish. She doesn't speak English. But a lot of our delegates are from different languages. And one of the beautiful things about that is that we come together to explain everything, and then we take the time to explain everything in all the different languages. Then we get feedback from that, then we translate it into English, and then we try to put all of this together. So every meeting is extremely long. I think that back in COP28, we had French, Portuguese, Arabic, Spanish, and English all in the room, and we had a meeting, and it took 8 hours. 8 hours trying to explain to Indigenous people from around the Indigenous elders what's going on, right? Like, it's a pain in the ass. But the thing about it is that this is what we need to do, right? The governments have failed us. The U.S. has taken us out of the Paris Accords. What do we have? We have each other. That's what we have. I mean, who protects us? We protect us. And this is something that really extends outside of front lines and all of these things. Like this is transcends. This is how humanity will evolve. This is how we move forward. This is how we get equal rights. This is how we move with the common human decency. After I came back from this world trip, which was awful, the last trip I took was, it was 45 days, and I took 27 flights, which is beyond ridiculous. Sorry, can I switch over? So after that, I had to get money to do this, right? Like, and bringing one person over to the other side of the world is fine. I can raise $5,000 to bring one person over, right? I can pay for myself. I can figure it out. We'll make something happen. But when I had to take a team of 18 people to the most expensive city in the world, Dubai, I had to raise the money. I mean, that's crazy. That's the most expensive city in the world, a petro-state. That's where we're going to have the conference of the parties? Come on. But while doing so, I had to do something that I don't like to do, which is go ask for money from grants. I had to write grants and do all this stuff. So I ended up getting one from the U.S. Climate Action Network. And I went down to schmooze the U.S. Climate Action Network grant committee that was having their West Coast regional meeting in New Mexico. And while I was down there, I attended a prayer gathering and was shot in the chest and died.
This is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we broadcast from COP28 in Dubai, we look now at threats to land and environmental defenders on the front lines of the climate crisis. Global Witness documented that last year, a climate defender was killed every other day somewhere in the world. In a minute, we'll speak with Jacob Johns, a Hopi and Akmal O'Adam environmental defender with the U.S. Climate Action Network, who's leading the Indigenous Wisdom Keepers delegation here at COP28 after he survived being shot in the chest by a far-right agitator in September in Espanola, New Mexico. The 23-year-old shooter was a supporter of Donald Trump, was wearing a red MAGA hat when he attacked a protest against the reinstallation of a statue of the violent Spanish conquistador Juan de Oñate. Johns and other indigenous activists were protesting plans to reinstall the statue honoring the 16th century conquistador, who was also New Mexico's first colonial governor and ordered a massacre in 1599 that killed between 800 and 1,000 Acoma indigenous people. 3 years ago, in 2020, a former Albuquerque City Council candidate was arrested for shooting a protester 4 times at a demonstration calling for the removal of another Oñate statue. Local and state officials in New Mexico reportedly ignored the warnings of potential gun violence ahead of the indigenous-led peaceful action. This is Melanie Yazzie of the Red Nation.
Denise Williams, mother of shooting victim Scott Williams, who was targeted at a 2020 Oñate protest in Albuquerque, said prior to Thursday's event, she called Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's office, the office of U.S. Senator Martin Heinrich, New Mexico State Police, the office of the New Mexico Attorney General, all members of U.S. Congress representing Valencia County in New Mexico, and all New Mexico State representatives and senators from Valencia County, to warn them of the high chance of gun violence directed at attendees. State Senator Elizabeth Stefanik was the only one to respond. Immediately after the shooting, Scott Williams' father, Dan Williams, called the governor's office again to tell her that she, quote, had blood on her hands for failing to properly respond to and prevent both shootings.
In October, a judge found probable cause to charge the gunman, Ryan Martinez, with attempted murder for the shooting of Jacob Johns during the peaceful prayer ceremony. Again, Melanie Yazzie.
It has been shown that the shooter was in possession of automatic weapons and deliberately targeted and attacked a peaceful and prayerful assembly of indigenous peoples. He brandished his gun at women and children. If Jacob hadn't interposed himself, there could have well been a mass shooting on September 28th.
Well, for more, we're joined by Jacob Johns for his first interview since he put his body between women and children when the shooter charged at them. We're so thankful you're alive, Jacob, and that you have healed enough to come to Dubai for the UN Climate Summit. If you don't mind going back to September 28th and talk about why you had flown in from Washington State, where you live, to New Mexico, and what you were protesting when the shooter came forward.
Yeah, so I'm based in Spokane, Washington. I'm a community-supported organizer underneath the fiscal sponsorship of the Backbone Campaign. And so I'm like a solo nonprofit group that does intersectional organizing around social justice and environmental protection. I am a part of the U.S. Climate Action Network, which is a national network that has like 187 organizations that come together and really try to build momentum around forcing our government to do what they say they're going to do, especially at these international tables of the COP. I had applied for a grant and I went down to the West Coast regional meeting to talk about the grant and to meet with other orgs in the area. One of the things that the network likes to do is to support local movement spaces. And I was asked to come out and support the local Tiwa movement that was taking place at the statue in Espanola. I'm part Hopi, which makes me cousins to my Tiwa cousins in New Mexico. And so I felt obligated to go out there. They told me that it was mainly women and children and two spirits and elders that were holding ceremony and prayer vigil to pray that this statue wasn't reinstalled. The statue was taken down in 2020, And the Akamo people and the Hemes people and all of the local Tiwa people have oral history and oral testimony of the horrendous things that took place there at the hands of this person, Onyate. So we came out to support, to spend the night there, and we had a prayer ceremony at sunrise, accompanied with the elders of the Tiwa Women United and other members of the U.S. Climate Action Network that came out to support. And the county commissioner ended up not reinstalling the statue, and so our prayers were heard and answered. You know, we weren't protesting, we weren't anti-anything, we were pro-logic and we were pro-sensibility, and our prayers were sent out into the universe and were received.
So what happened with this guy in a red MAGA hat?
So a group of agitators showed up, a bunch of right-wing extremists showed up wearing, you know, Make America Great Again hats, and we're really just advocating for the statue to be built and to be re-put into place. This they thought was something that needed to be honored. This person who the statue is of is equitable to Hitler. And so, you know, we think of the idea of putting up a statue of Hitler in, you know, in a place where there's mainly Jewish people. It's a horrendous atrocity to, like, just moral responsibility. And so these people came out and they were very, very aggressive, very, very agitative. There was one specifically, the shooter, that was walking around and being very, very aggressive, coming into the space, coming into the altar space, and was just taking a lot of video, getting in people's faces, saying racist things to young children, and just really being in a negative space. The police ended up taking him and making him leave because of how he was being so aggressive to the gentle crowd. And then he was allowed to come back in. Once he came back in, the police left, and this is when the incident occurred.
And he opened fire. You went through several surgeries. That was at the end of September. This is only 2 months later. You've healed enough to come here. Talk about why you're leading the Indigenous Wisdom Keepers delegation and what you're calling for here.
Yeah, so, you know, they said that they charged him with attempted murder, but I did in fact die. I died in the helicopter on the ride from Española to Albuquerque, and in that place beyond death, I ran into a council of spirits that I had to beg and convince to let me come back into this body. I had to sign a new life contract with a long list of things that I had to do. And so this was one of them. You know, we had been working for a year, bringing together a group of Indigenous wisdom keepers and activists and youth activists from around the world to come together and put our minds into a document that would distill Indigenous wisdom from a global perspective and really stand in solidarity with each other. You know, a lot of us as Indigenous folks understand that what we are trying to push domestically often goes on deaf ears, and that we have to step outside of our governmental forces and try to plead internationally to these type of venues. And so we have, 15 folks who had been coming from around the world to be here, and I was, first off, spiritually obligated, but morally obligated to continue to do this work. And, you know, first I'm the money man too, right? Like, I got to sign the checks, I got to put everything in, I got to make sure everything is in the space that it needs to be, but I do have ongoing medical issues.
And what is most important you want to see out of COP28?
I want to see the hearts and minds of our world leaders shift into a more logical frame. You know, we must stand in solidarity with a future that is healthy and livable and just. We are being fed dystopian lies about how the world will end and how everything will fall apart. And yes, the science is saying that, but we as Indigenous people understand that as the old world dies, that a new one is created, and that we must focus on that creation process as being what it is we are trying to broadcast into the universe.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
Sorry, everybody. There are too many screens going on. Yeah, that was heavy. That's really heavy. I got shot with a hollow point bullet by a literal fascist. And the hollow point bullet came in and it destroyed my body. It went through my lungs, collapsed my lungs, went through my liver. It went through my pancreas, It went through my stomach, which had to be cut, and half of it was put together. I had 2 tubes put in my liver and 1 in my abdomen. I had for 6 months. I had surgery for 2 days straight. I had multiple surgeries. All my hair fell out. It's kind of growing back now, but I lost my spleen. And when I was in the hospital, I was really messed up. I mean, I had to learn to walk again, talk again, how to go to the bathroom, pass gas, things that we take for granted. And it was extremely painful. I had like 100 staples in my abdomen that my body was allergic to and started rejecting. And so it was just like this ongoing onslaught of pain and turmoil. And I was on so many narcotics, and I was screwed up. And I knew that I had to continue to do this work. Like I was told, this is why you're coming back into the body. This is what you have to do. There was a long list of things, but I came across this council of spirits that examined my life, and everything that went through in my life, everything that happened, we examined it. And I said that humanity still has a chance. Humanity still has a chance to go and survive, right? Like, there's still a chance. And I brought out all these examples of times in my life where I had chosen service to others versus service to self, and stepping away from selfish things in order to help the greater good. And these examples gave me the ability to come back in to my body, to continue to be a father to my young daughter. And also I was tasked with all kinds of stuff to continue to do this work. And when I came to, a medicine man was coming to visit me, and he was telling me that I needed to stop taking the pain meds. And I was on, morphine, OxyContin, I was on a lot of pain meds, a lot of heavy narcotics. And he told me I needed to stop taking the pain meds and really feel the pain for what it is. In my mind, I had to feel the pain and experience it for the full force of what it is, because in actuality, it was my body healing. It was my body rejuvenating. And out of that pain was a rebirth and this regrowth, that something new was emerging out of the death. And so I stopped taking the pain meds. It took me a while to stop getting off the narcotics. It took me like three weeks to wean myself off of all of the narcotics, but I was able to stop taking the pain meds. And 2 weeks after I got out of the hospital, I jumped on a plane to Dubai with no pain meds. And I had 2 tubes in my abdomen and 1 in my liver that came into 2 drains that I had in a little fanny pack. And I don't know if you saw it on there, but I had that for 6 months as I tried to walk through and do this work. And I'm here to tell you that the science is telling us that we're all fucked. I mean, it's literally that. And we're starting to see it right now. The end is right here. And while we were talking about it, we were talking about this idea of this new world, right? This idea that we're birthing out of the old, and the seed of creation lies in the seed of destruction, that we will focus on the rebirth, and this is the way that we'll be able to pull ourselves out. And, prophecies have told us that there is a time of destruction. And we have all been force-fed by the media that the apocalypse is here. Oh, the end is near, the end of days, right? Repent now, all that stuff. But as an Indigenous person specifically living in this country, I'm here to tell you that we're already living in a post-apocalyptic world. That we've already survived. That we've pulled through. That we're still here, and we remain, and we are building power. We are building strength. And I'm here to tell you that humanity itself is able to step back from that cliff. Despite what the science is telling us, despite what the Western governments are trying to force upon us, that we have the ability to step back from death and try to rebuild. That in the pain of this social and economical and governmental upheaval, births out a new system that makes the old, oppressive, outdated systems of oppression obsolete. And we must focus on what is possible now. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about seeing this fascist come back into our country, is that finally the left will start to rally again. Maybe we'll see some anti-war people come back into the thing. Wouldn't that be great? What an amazing world that would be. And as we look at this frightening 4 years ahead of us, possibly more, I want to tell you that we have each other, and that you're not alone. 100%, you are not alone. And there are people in other countries who are being oppressed and being shunned down and being neglected and being put at the forefront all around the world. And those people are your sisters. Those people are your brothers. And that we have to find our family once again and really, really step away from all of these oppressive systems that tell us what is and what isn't, and really redefine what it looks like for us to come together in a healthy, just, livable world. and not talk about it conceptually, but actually do it in real time. And so we were able to do that. You know, an amazing time that was. I have to grab my charger because my laptop is going to die, but I'm going to switch over to Jhajayra here while I do that.
Bueno, Jhajayra, estamos hablando de cómo necesitamos unirnos alrededor del mundo, que todos somos hermanas y hermanos. ¿Qué te gustaría decir o compartir con nosotros?
Ya, la unidad es la solución.
Unity
y
is the solution.
Alzar nuestras voces.
To raise our voices together.
En diferentes alrededor del mundo existen nacionalidades indígenas que enfrentan conflictos muy diferentes o también iguales, pero compartimos ese mismo dolor.
Around the world, all around the world in different countries, there are indigenous peoples who face different challenges sometimes, and also similar challenges.
Por eso la unidad y la acción colectiva son fundamentales para los pueblos indígenas.
For that reason, unity is important. Coming together is essential.
Para luchar por un futuro sostenible. Cuando las comunidades se agrupan o los pueblos indígenas se agrupan, se amplifican sus voces, se fortalecen sus reivindicaciones.
We need to come together to raise our voices. When we come together, we are stronger and we can make more difference.
El liderazgo indígena juega un papel crucial en estos procesos, ya que guían y organizan a las comunidades.
Indigenous leadership is crucial in these processes. We are the ones who organize our communities.
Preservando nuestra cultura, nuestra tradición. Nosotros abogamos por nuestros derechos y el respeto.
We are the ones who defend our culture, who continue our traditional practices, and we are the ones who try to defend our rights.
Lo importante es unirnos, luchar por nuestros territorios, que respeten nuestros espacios de vida, que no estamos dañando a alguien si no queremos defenderlo para las futuras generaciones.
It's important that we come together to defend our territories, our homes, that we are uniting for the benefit of all.
Y unirnos nos hace mucho más fuertes, nos hace mucho más valientes para enfrentar estos desafíos.
Uniting ourselves makes us stronger and also gives us more courage to face our challenges.
En el mundo moderno, el cambio climático y la explotación de nuestros recursos.
In the modern world, we are dealing with climate change and the exploitation of our natural resources.
Aquí en Ecuador, a raíz del cambio climático, hemos perdido muchos lugares y asimismo se van perdiendo los recursos.
Here in Ecuador, at the root of this climate change, we have lost many of our places, many of our natural resources.
Tenemos sequías, pérdida de cascadas, nuestros bosques contaminados, nuestros ríos contaminados, que de ellos nosotros proveemos la alimentación del día a día.
Here in Ecuador, we have drought. We have lost waterfalls. We have contaminated forests, contaminated rivers. This is what we're living with day to day.
El respeto y valores a nuestra herencia cultural y la conexión a nuestra tierra.
But we have our traditional values and our connection to the earth.
La acción colectiva y un liderazgo comprometido se convierte en pilares para continuar un futuro sostenible y justo.
Our commitment to come together and work collectively is a pillar to our work and key to our success in the future.
Si nos pudiéramos unir como indígenas, sería lo más esencial en estos momentos, porque juntos, como lo dije en el inicio, juntos podemos hacer que todo esto cambie y poder seguir luchando y frenando estas luchas que enfrentamos.
Coming together, unifying all of us as Indigenous peoples is the key, is the most important thing for us to be able to address these challenges we all face.
En este pequeño espacio quiero compartir una experiencia que vivimos el día de ayer, 21 de enero, en el territorio y en la comunidad de donde pertenezco.
In this space, I want to share with you something that happened yesterday in my community from which I come.
El día de ayer, en nuestra provincia, está muy exceso el calentamiento global. Eso ha perjudicado a muchas cosas dentro de nuestros territorios.
In the province where I live, the effects of climate change have been very strong, and this has affected us in various ways.
El día de ayer se incendió una casa de un hermano indígena, en lo cual perdió totalmente todo. Perdió su casa, sus materiales, totalmente todo.
Yesterday, the house of one of our Indigenous brothers burned. It burned completely down, and they lost all of their belongings, everything they had.
No tenemos conocimiento de cómo se pudo incendiar esta casa. Si la comunidad en conjunto, en unidad, no hubiera luchado contra esto, hubiera perjudicado a muchas casas más.
We don't know how this fire started, but we do know that if the entire community had not come together to put it out, many more houses could have burned down.
Por eso también este espacio, quiero decirles que estamos buscando cómo apoyar a esta familia que se ha quedado totalmente sin nada. Estamos viendo las formas de poder recaudar fondos. Hemos creado el GoFundMe, no sé si lo pronuncie bien, pero se está tratando de hacer lo mejor posible para poder sustituir esta familia devastada en estos momentos.
We are trying to figure out a way to help this family that lost everything. And we have created a GoFundMe campaign where people can contribute to help them replace what they've lost. And somehow, perhaps we'll be able to share a link by the end of the event, if anyone here feels like they would like to contribute.
Gracias.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias. I'm really excited about this. We're a little bit over on time, so I just wanted to, I'm going to cut through another video that I had lined up. And specifically, I would like to lead you all in a guided meditation if you're willing and if you're able. This is something that we do traditionally. This is based off of our own traditions, where we speak of breathing light in the morning time as we... maybe I shouldn't stand there. Okay, oh, that's better. All right, yeah, cool. In the morning time, we sit and we face the sun. And as the sun rises, we imagine the sun light coming down from the top of our heads and filling our bodies. As we breathe in light, we draw the light down from the sun, pulling us down and pulling the light into our body. And as we exhale, we blow out darkness. We blow out smoke, blow out all these things. And so this practice is called Hilta, and I'd like to invite you all to just quiet your minds, get relaxed, close your eyes, get comfortable. Try to envision a healthy, just, livable future. Try to imagine an America without Trump. What a wonderful place. So I'd like to just invite you all to breathe with me. Imagine that you're sitting facing the sun, and it's dark, and that the sun is rising. And as the sun rises on the horizon, you feel the light touch the top of your head. And as you take a deep breath, you pull that light down from the top of your head down into your brain. Imagine the light coming down into your head, filling up your body, and with each breath, you exhale the darkness that is trapped inside of your body. Feel all of the stress, all of the worry, all of the darkness that is trapped inside of your body being exchanged with divine light given to you from creation. I'd like to invite you to breathe that light in, giving to you. As the sun rises, you pull that light further and further down into your body, going into your shoulders, down into your chest, into your abdomen. And you're pulling up all the darkness and all of the stress and all of the worry that is trapped in your body, and you're blowing it out. Imagine it coming out of your body like you're smoking, like you're blowing out smoke. And with each inhale, you continue to breathe in that light that's given to us and feel that light filling up your body, pushing it further and further down into your hips, down into your thighs, into your kneecaps. And you exchange and you draw up all the darkness and stress from your knees, from the bottom all the way up, and exchange it with light as it continues to draw down into the very tips of your toes. I'd like to invite you all to feel your body as what it truly is, a divine being of light. And then in this space of being just light, I invite you to imagine that your body dissolves and that you are just merely one sphere of consciousness, one ball of infinite light. And where the top of your head used to be becomes the North Pole. And where the base of your spine used to be becomes the South Pole. And now when you breathe in light, feel it draw from the top of your head, but it's actually the North Pole. And as you breathe in light, feel the light come down from the North Pole, draw down to the equatorial region, all the way down to the South Pole. And with each breath, you feel the light, the divine light of creation, filling up the body and the planet simultaneously. At the core of the planet lies your heart. And I invite you all to feel your heart, feel the weight and the heat and the brightness and the light that is divine inside of your body, at the core of the planet. Feeling that light expand. We must switch from absorbing outside light and outside energy into understanding our own power and the divine connection that we have by broadcasting light and connecting ourselves to the center of the planet. I'd like to invite you all to feel this light coming from your heart, simultaneously coming from the planet. I'd like to invite you. I just want to salute you all for taking times out of your day to be here, to be in community. And I want you all to leave here feeling refreshed and recharged and finding joy and safety in each other. Remember that we protect each other, we create the future, and we are nature. I just want to salute you all once again for being here, listening to these words, and feeling the prayers from our relatives. Thank you to everyone who came out, especially our sister from the Ecuador. And I just want to say, I salute you all. You can follow our work at awisdomkeepersdelegation.org. You can also follow our Instagram at Wisdom Delegation. You can find all of the cool stuff. I did just want to touch base that we are stepping out of the climate advocacy space, and we are becoming our own nonprofit. We are going to create 8 different climate resilience hubs that institute traditional ecological knowledge to try to regenerate bioregions around the planet. And our first one is going to be here in Washington State. And our sister, we just confirmed, is now in South Africa. So we have 6 more spaces to go, but that is our plan for showing the world how to adapt and mitigate to a warmed world.
Thank you so much. And Jhajayra, muchísimas gracias por estar con nosotros aquí virtualmente. No sé si tú tienes algunas palabras para el fin.
Igual agradecerle de antemano a la delegación Guardianes de la Sabiduría, a Jacob, a ti, Kayla, y a todos los que están presentes.
I want to thank the Wisdom Keepers delegation, Jacob, Kayla, and everyone who is here present.
Es muy importante y crucial estar en estos eventos, en estos momentos, y que ustedes escuchen desde la voz, desde la voz indígena, desde la voz de jóvenes, desde la voz de mujeres, que día a día enfrentamos estos grandes desafíos.
It is very important for us all to be in these spaces, for all of you to listen to the voices of Indigenous people, listen to the voices of the young people, of women, and come together.
No necesitamos tener una edad para poder ser líderes o activistas por la defensa de nuestros territorios.
You don't have to be a certain age to be a leader, to be an activist, to defend our land and our territories, our natural resources.
Yo inicié liderazgos desde los 22 años, ahora en la actualidad tengo 25 años y ha sido el eje primordial para poder realizar y defender el territorio sin importar las consecuencias, porque como líderes indígenas hemos sido perseguidos y asesinados.
For me, I began as a leader at 22 years old, and now I'm 24. And for me, it's been all my life. It's important to do this, even though I may find myself threatened. Leaders here who are defenders of nature find themselves under threat all the time.
Defendemos por nuestras futuras generaciones. Tengamos conciencia y concienticemos al resto. Un futuro sostenible, un futuro de viabilidad con alternativas de solución para los pueblos indígenas. Muchas gracias.
We are doing this for future generations to create a sustainable future. Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for being here. We really appreciate it. Please help me thank our guests for all being here. This has been just a really wonderful experience for all of us. Thank you.